Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is where I talk all things product. And as promised in the previous video, which was on the product sense questions, today we are going to talk about analytics/execution based questions. If you haven't checked the previous video, do check it out. It's in the comment section and the link here. So before we begin about the execution or analytics based questions, let's look at what are the different kinds of analytics questions which are asked in a product management interview. So to start off, the number one question which is asked are the guesstimate or estimation based questions. So these are questions like how many pictures are uploaded on Facebook every day, or guess the number of chats or interactions happening on WhatsApp every day, etc., etc. Where a limited information is given to you and you have to base your argument basis whatever data is publicly available and using some of your logical reasoning and thinking. That is one. The second questions are around metrics. So the question can be that, if you were the product manager for Amazon Prime or Zomato or Swiggy, how will your product dashboard look like? And the idea here is to actually see if you are able to assess the state of the product right now. So if it is in a growth phase, if it is in a monetization phase, if it is very, very early, and are you able to prioritize the goals for the product and then accordingly choose the right kind of metric, starting from, say, the North Star metric to the counter metric and, some of the health related metric about the product. And the third question, which we are going to deep dive today, are the execution style, or you can say the RCA based questions, where they might ask you that, some of the prime metric of a certain product, say Zomato or Amazon Prime or WhatsApp, has fallen by a certain percentage, 7, 8, 20%. And what will you do to first ascertain what has gone wrong? And what is your method to find out what is the root cause of this metric falling down? So this third type, which is the execution style question, is what we are going to talk about today. For the first, which is the estimation question, and the second, which is the product matrix question, I will upload different videos separately. So let's deep dive into the execution based questions. So to start off, first look at what exactly is the interviewer trying to see or trying to judge you on in this analytics-based question. So there are three things which the interviewer is trying to see. Similar to the product sense questions, here again, the favorite word structure comes into play. So the interviewer is trying to see, do you have a structure or a method to solve this? Or are you just moving from one hypothesis to other? So one is structure. Second, how good are you in problem solving or logical reasoning? Can you form hypotheses on your own, and can you then have data or ask for data to prove or disprove those hypotheses? And how good are those hypotheses? What is the quality of those hypotheses? And third is, as is in the name of these questions, which is analytics, how good is your analytics? How good is your quant? How good is your maths? Are you able to do some basic maths? Are you able to create a model in your head or on paper and then be able to apply that to the problem here? So those are the three things which the interviewer is trying to see in these questions. So now let's look at it using an example. So imagine if you are the product manager for Zomato, the food delivery app, and you enter one fine day, one Monday morning, and you're just opening your laptop, and before that your boss comes in and says that our weekly delivery numbers have fallen by 21% compared to the previous week. And what do you do? So this is the question, and you have to now imagine, if you are the product manager, what are the steps you're going to take to investigate what actually led to a 21% decrease. That's a huge decline, honestly, in the weekly orders for Zomato week over week. So before I introduce the framework which you should use, the very first question which I think comes to my mind and which should be asked, and I've seen that honestly happening a lot, especially in the Indian startups and Indian companies wherever I've worked, is question this data. A lot of times what happens is either the definition of the metric would have changed, or the BI tool or the source from which the data is coming may have got some error or some mistake there, because it's a 21% increase. So what you do is first actually just make sure that the definition which is used that is correct, which is for deliveries. And you can also ask this to the interviewer for your own clarity. Say, what is the definition of delivery? Is it the total deliveries? Is it deliveries minus cancellation? Is it something else? And he or she will clarify. And second, make sure that there is no error in the BI tool or the dashboard which we look at. That is more a practical tip than an interview answer, because that is what happens a lot of times, at least in my experience, that the data the source is broken, or the way the matrix is being developed, the matrix is being calculated, has been changed by, say, the product analytics team or somebody else, and you're just looking at something wrong. And instead of just diverting all your energy into trying to solve what has gone wrong, just make sure that what you're looking at is correct. That is one. And then once you enter into this discussion, you can basically broadly bucket the RCA or this whole process into two aspects. One is the internal aspect, the other one is the external aspect. Internal means within the organization, something which you control, which you own. Other thing is external, which is outside the organization, the competition, the industry, other things which you cannot control largely. So you first break it down into two and maybe start with internal or external. So I will also give you a tip here. Suppose if the decline has been stark like this, like a 20%, 21%, invariably the reasons are more internal, something to do with technology, something to do with a release which has gone wrong or something like that. Wherever something where the decline has been gradual, like you have been seeing a consistent decline over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks of a couple of percent point each, and you have reached from a 17% to a 12%, 8%, that's a slightly gradual decline over 3-4 weeks. Invariably, the reasons will be in the external bucket. So you can actually prioritize which one do you want to start off, depending upon if the decline has been gradual or a very, very steep decline. In this case, let's start with the internal reasons. So what could be the internal reasons? And you can start asking by saying that do we have a cut around, say, the platforms? So you have an iOS application, you have a Android application, you have the mobile side, you have the desktop. Is there a trend around if the decline has been stark in one of these platforms, or it has been consistent throughout? That also will give you a sense whether something is broken in any particular platform or not. Imagine if the answer is that it's been consistent throughout. Then you start asking for any release which has happened over the weekend or on the last week or so. And of course, releases would have happened, because in most of the organizations, there are multiple releases which keep happening. And you figure out all the relevant releases which could have had an impact on these. And then of course, the interviewer will give you some of the explanations around whether, a few releases have gone. And then you deep dive into some of these releases, and invariably you might get an answer there. Or if the interviewer is, because the interviewers typically have multiple answers in their mind, right? There's no one answer. And if they want you to lead to a different direction, then they will keep saying no to some of these. Or if they want you to actually lead to one direction, they might say yes and want you to drill down into that direction. So as an interviewer, I would have multiple answers in my mind, right? and I will not go with one answer. I just want to see what is the breadth of your thinking. So that is one interesting bit, that as an interviewee, you are being judged not only on your thoroughness or your depth of understanding or your analysis, but also the breadth of your understanding. And that will actually come into play when we'll go into the external reasons which are beyond your control. So in the internal part, you've looked at the platforms, you've looked at the releases, you might ask the marketing team if some notifications, etc., which used to go out, if they are seeing a decline or something is wrong there, and stuff like those. And if you find an answer there, if the interviewer agrees that there is an answer there, then you go deep dive there. Otherwise, you move to the external factors. Now, what are external factors? External factors again can be broadly classified into 3 or 4. Number 1, competition. That's the biggest. Number 2, industry at large. There is some change which has happened at an industry level. Or number 3, customer behavior. Something which has led to a change in the way customers engage with your app. And I'll come to each of these one by one. First, look at competition. We are talking about Zomato. We know that this is a very hyper-competitive space. We used to have Uber Eats as well. Now it's no longer there. It's merged with Zomato, but Swiggy is definitely there. And if there is any heightened sense of activity, promotion, or anything else which the competition, namely Swiggy or any other player, has made, that you will need to take care. You can ask the interviewer that if there is any activity or any promotion or any campaign, maybe a ATL activity around, say, IPL or say World Cup or any cricket match or anything which the competition has done, then you need to take care of that. Or the second point is the industry at large. When I say industry at large, I also talk about any regulatory changes which will impact the entire industry. So Zomato and food delivery industry is of course not that regulated, but for example, when I was at Max Life, if there was any change related to, say, the IRDA, which would have caused any impact on the product itself, you need to take care of that. I remember there was a time when, due to a TRI regulation or a change, the SMSs which were going out were all failing, and that led to a massive disruption in all the different companies and organizations, not just for Max Life. So similar to these things, you will need to actually understand if there is any industry-wide impact which has happened due to any other change which has happened because of a regulatory change or because of a change in maybe any of the partners you're working with. So for example, if you're partnering with a delivery partner, is there a change which has happened to them? Or if you're working with, say, Google Maps API, and it had some change or some downtime or some fluctuation which will anyways get covered in the internal one. But of course, if you know for sure that Google normally doesn't go down, but if there is any other player, any other partner, for example, for WhatsApp integration or for SMS integration, and some of the APIs were failing or the organization had a downtime, etc., you will need to take care of this. This only shows the bandwidth or the width of your thinking. As I was saying earlier, it's not just about the depth of what you're doing or what you're thinking, but the width of what you're thinking and doing. And then comes the third aspect. The third aspect is any change in the customer behavior per se. Now, customer behavior doesn't change overnight, right? But again, it can be because of a factor which has led to this. Seasonality being number one. Any other seasonality, when I say for Zomato, it can be on a weekly level. It can be any, for example, the last week, because we are comparing week on week with the previous week. Maybe the week before was a very, very high growth week, and you hit numbers because maybe there was a match going on, or maybe there was some event which led to higher numbers, and now you have actually come down to the base or the normal numbers. I remember very distinctly when I was at Make My Trip and I'll push in this story here. and I was new to product management. I had to make my trip, and I think after the New Year's, I went to the office, and I was just looking at the dashboard, and one day and the other day and 3 days happened, and I was consistently seeing that there was a decline in the conversion for hotel bookings, and that decline was stark, like 40% or so, week over week. And I got very, very worried. I started thinking that something has gone wrong. Maybe during the New Year, nobody was in office, and I don't know if something has gone wrong with the product, and I was really, really panicking. And this is when I stepped up to my boss, and I said, the conversion seems to be low. And he said, what, 30-40% low? And I said, yes. And he said, yeah, it happens every year. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's a common phenomena, right? So after a huge peak, you will have a decline, say, and it's not even fair to compare numbers with a peak, which is largely due to a seasonality effect. But for Make My Trip, it was mostly the AMJ, or the April, May, June season, or the OND, which is the October, November, December quarters. But similarly for Zomato, it could be, as I said, any one day can be a spike, any 1 week can be a spike. So if you're comparing that to any other seasonal week which had an unnatural spike, then of course this comparison doesn't make sense. And in fact, that can be a very smart answer as well when you're answering these kind of questions. Or any kind of customer behavior can be maybe any press release or anything which has gone against Zomato, or any kind of press release or any kind of campaign which has gone against eating outside food. Or it can be just the fact that maybe you're entering into and there are local changes in India, right? So you can have Savan month coming in, or you can have Navratra coming in, and which might have an impact in certain parts of the country. And you will, by the way, when you were actually figuring out and dissecting this, the first question in the beginning could also have been the cut around cities. So if there is any particular city or any particular geography, is it the decline is more on the north side, or more on the south side, more on the east, more on the north, west, or is it more on the top 8 cities, bottom 8 cities, tier 2 cities, those kind of cuts. Those might also give you an indication of where the error might lie. And before I end, I want to give the same advice which I gave in the previous video of product sense questions also, which is make it very, very conversational. See, there are no right answers, and the entire intent of these interviews is for the interviewer to get a glimpse of how you think and how you will operate if ever you find yourself in a situation like this when working. And that is what you have to give to the interviewer. And that's it. That brings me to an end to this video. And the next video I'm going to shoot is going to be on the guesstimate/estimate questions, which is also an integral part of the analytics based questions which get asked in the product management round. And if you want to get notified of that, then do subscribe to this channel, and do let me know through comments what you're liking, what you're not liking, which will help me to improve. So thank you so much. Stay safe, stay healthy.